Officer Erg, place where he's supposed to be.
Well,
okay. I'm sorry. I'll rephrase.
I'm not too concerned with that. I don't know what supposed to be means, but I understand.
I can rephrase it.
But Eric's shell casings may or may not be visible on that portion of the diagram. I don't know, but the witness will say so. Remember, that's a sort of a cutout point.
Could you please come down and find Officer Ergin's ballistics diagram?
Erg is indicated by the aqua color 124 or 125. Approximately somewhere in this area.
Okay. And finally, Officer Diaz, based upon this chart from the ballistics people from BCI. Of course, it's not on this.
What'd you say? Objection?
Based upon your investigation, okay, did you learn whether Officer Diaz fired his weapon or not?
Yes,
well,
sir.
Remember, not based upon hearsay, but it's well known that casings attributed to him were discovered somewhere near that island.
Somewhere up there. Somewhere in this area.
All right. Take the stand. Now, sir, during your interview process, you had a ability or opportunity to talk to Officer Brelo?
Yes, sir.
And you interviewed him?
Yes, sir, on December 10th.
And, sir, do you remember the conversation that you had with him during that interview?
Yes, sir.
And during that interview, did he not explain his actions?
Yes, sir.
And could you tell the court what he said that night, starting from when he pulled into the parking lot?
When he pulled in, he had described it as a dirt road. There was a lot of dust being kicked up by the cars ahead of him. There was radio traffic that there was a water plant and there was no way out. He came in, saw another car pulling to the left and stopping. He pulled up to the right and was stopping.
Now, sir, did he indicate whether shots are being fired when he pulled in?
As he's pulling in, he's hearing radio traffic of shots fired.
Your Honor, I would object. The best evidence is the video, and we can play that.
That's not true, Your Honor. That's not true.
What is
what he said is the video.
What isn't true?
Only a party opponent, Your Honor, can play a video if they decide to. That's in an evidence rule.
Yeah, well, you're having him testify to an admission by a party opponent. Why is it better to have him summarize and paraphrase it in, I suppose, some instances, what the opponent said instead of playing portions of his statement? I mean, I understand you may not want to, and I don't think you can be required to play his entire statement.
I don't have...
But he can certainly cross-examine on those portions that you wrote.
He cannot play the statement, Your Honor. Any part of the statement. And that's case law that I have here, Judge, that I would like to, if you want to get into that discourse right now, we can.
Well, wait. The best evidence objection itself is overruled. But you're suggesting he can't cross-examine and say to this witness, well, on your direct exam, did you mention where the defendant said such and such?
Absolutely, but he cannot play any of the video or any of the transcripts. Yes, he can ask all those questions.
Actually, I'm not aware of that case law, so I am interested in it, but not at this very moment.
Okay.
The particular objection, though, is overruled.
So we're at the point where Officer Brelo is pulling into the parking lot. I mean, to the drive, I should say. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And he indicated that, again, without me...
As he's pulling in, he's hearing radio traffic of shots fired. He's pulling up. He hears the radio traffic he thought was Sergeant Coleman saying there's no way out. There's a car stopped to his left. He pulls up to the right.
Okay, does he know which car to the left he's meaning?
In the initial part of the interview, I don't think he knew what car it was. Later on, he identified it as CPD 238.
Okay. All right. Then what did he say?
As he's putting the car in park, he looks up to see the Monte Carlo coming at him, the headlights. He doesn't see anybody out of car 238. He sees the Chevy strike the Crown Vic, and he hears gunfire.
Okay, so basically the Malibu is coming down there as he describes, hitting this car right here, correct?
Yes, it hits the Crown Vic.
Does he indicate whether this thing comes to a stop or not?
It stops, but the way it bounces, he thinks it's going to come and strike his car next.
Okay. And did he indicate to you whether he saw anything happening with inside the Malibu at that point?
At the point of impact, he and his partner look up and say that they see the both occupants in the car with black objects in their hands.
Did he make a gesture and indicate how that was?
His gesture was 2 hands up in this manner.
He indicated that's what he saw both occupants doing when they were approaching his vehicle.
As the car strikes, yes, sir.
Okay. And after that point, what did he indicate to you?
Officer Brelo hears gunfire. This is not over the radio. He can hear it. He says it's erupting in front of him, coming from what he perceives to be the Monte Carlo. He draws his weapon and engages what he felt was 5 or 6 rounds through the windshield towards the Monte Carlo.
Okay, did he indicate to you at any point in the interview what kind of training that was that he did that?
Later on in the interview, when asked about training, he stated that they had received what they called ambush training to escape a confrontation out of a car, to engage right from the front seat of the cruiser, shoot through the windshield at the threat.
So at this point, he sees the Monte Carlo crash into this vehicle. Here's gunfire coming from that direction, correct?
Yes, sir.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay. And what does he do after he does the ambush training?
Officer Brelo fired what he said was 5 or 6 rounds. Looks down, he thought he had a jam of his pistol. Drops the magazine, reloads in the front seat, goes to a fresh magazine. CPD training is get out of the car. The car is a coffin. He opens the driver's door and decides he's going to sprint across from his driver's seat to behind car 238 for cover.
So he goes this way.
Yes, sir. As he gets out of the car, he engages the Monte Carlo again on the run as he's transitioning from his cruiser to the rear of 238.
So he's at the rear of 238 at this point.
Yes, sir.
Does he indicate to you his perceptions at that point?
He states that gunfire is still erupting and he can see the occupants in the car moving. And he's asking himself why the threat is still continuing. He looks around, he can see officers off to his left.
Okay, so that would be the officers on this side, correct?
Yes, sir. He doesn't know who they are.
Go ahead.
He sees them there, and based on seeing that and the gunfire from the car, he's afraid he may get caught in crossfire with the officers to the left. He's also fearful that the Monte Carlo might start pushing against the Crown Victoria and push the car on top of him. His first part of the statement was he felt it was safer to get up onto the trunk of the car so the Crown Victoria wouldn't get pushed upon him.
Okay. Did he indicate to you whether he saw any of the occupants of 238?
He did not.
Okay. So you indicated he's at the top on the trunk now? Is
Yes,
that where
sir.
you were?
He said he was crouched behind crouched on the trunk of 238. Just prior to going up there, he looks down. His pistol is locked back. He's out of ammo. He drops his magazine, goes to his third magazine.
So where is he reloading?
He's reloading, according to his statement, behind 238.
Okay, so he's not on the trunk yet.
He reloads and then gets up on the trunk.
So this is, according to his statement, the third time he reloads in the back of 238.
His second reload, his third magazine.
Thank you for clarifying that.
He also says that based on his training, he knows that a 9mm round can be stopped by an engine block. Being up on the trunk of the car, he felt gave him elevation that he could engage the suspects in the car and stop the threat and the gunfire that's coming, that he's perceiving coming at him.
What does he do?
He states he was firing into the passenger compartment of the Monte Carlo, leaning over, shooting over the light bar of the car.
Okay, so we're on a trunk.
He's on the trunk, leaning up onto the roof, said he was shooting over the light bar.
So he indicates you got on a trunk and then leaned over the light bar to shoot.
Yes, sir.
Does he give you what his perceptions are at that point in time?
He states he can still see movement in the car, and he's asking himself why these people are still moving, why are they still shooting at us. He stated repeatedly he was terrified and thought he was going to be killed by the gunfire.
Okay. And then what does he say after he's shooting from the light bar?
The next thing that he recalled was standing at the driver's door of the Monte Carlo. Somebody is yelling, "Ceasefire." His gun is in his holster. He looks around. The shooting has stopped. He reaches into the car, and the Monte Carlo takes it from drive, puts it in park, turns off the ignition, removes the keys, and drops them on the hood of the car.
Okay. Does he indicate to you at any point in time that he was on top of the hood firing down into the occupants?
No, sir.
What was his, did you ask him that question?
He was asked that question if he recalled being on the hood of the car. He said he had no recollection of being on the hood.
Did you have an indication from anybody else that he was on the hood from your prior interviews?
From one interview,
And who would that have been?
Officer Sobolik.
Now, sir, you interviewed all these individuals, correct?
Yes, sir.
The shooters are all in this area.
Yes, sir.
Through your interviews, did you learn whether anybody else indicated they saw anybody on top of the trunk?
I don't believe anybody else said that.
Did anybody else say that he saw him on top of the hood?
No, sir.
Except one individual.
Except one.
Okay. So then Officer Brelo indicates, last thing he remembers, he's on the side of the Malibu.
Yes, sir.
All right, sir, did Officer Brelo indicate to you during this whole encounter whether he was fearful for his life?
Yes, he did.
Did he also indicate to you anything else about that?
He stated that his service time, he was deployed to Iraq, and while never being involved in any firefights there, he had come under attack from rockets and mortars. In those situations, he said you could hear the bang and you had a time delay before the rounds were incoming. In this situation, this was a lot more immediate, a lot more in-your-face type of situation.
Okay. Did he indicate to you anything else about his military training? Oh, about the military, I'm sorry, excuse me.
He did make a comment that his Marine training was to, when under attack, go to an elevated position and push through the target.
Okay. Sir, do you know how many shots Officer Brelo indicated to you that he shot that night?
He stated he fired 5 or 6 and did a magazine exchange. Would have gone through a second magazine of 17. So that puts us at, where are we at? 17 and 5, 22 to 23 rounds there, and whatever was left in his gun at the end. He didn't say how much it was. He
Do
did
you
not
know
say
how
what
much
it
was left in his gun?
The indication on the box is 2 rounds.
So how many rounds came out of that third magazine?
Would have been 15.
And what does that up to?
Where are we at? 22, 15, 37.
Okay, and how many casings attributed to Officer Brelo's gun was found at the scene?
I believe the number was 49.
So is that consistent with his statement regarding how many shots he fired?
Objection.
Sustained. Do you think I'm not listening? I mean, this is your closing argument. So I have the next question.
On 49 casings, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Attributed to Officer Brelo.
Yes, sir.
Sir, does he indicate to you when he was on top of the light bar who he was shooting at? Whether it was the passenger and or the driver?
When asked where his target was at, initially he was transitioning between both occupants in the car and then into the windshield itself, transitioning back and forth.
Did he indicate to you in his mind how long this all took?
He felt it was 30 or 40 seconds.
Based upon your information that your team gathered and you gathered, do you know how long this whole shooting occurred? Over what type of time frame?
I believe based on the dash cam, we were at about a 20-second mark.
Okay. Sir, is it possible or is it practical that somebody can unload 3 magazines within that short period of time?
Objection.
Overruled. Well, hold on. Choose one or the other. But otherwise, the objection is overruled. You said possible or practical.
Okay. Is it possible, sir, to unload 3 magazines in that short period of time?
Yes, sir. Taking into account also the adrenaline in the person's system.
How does that affect that?
You'd be ramped up. You'd probably be acting a lot quicker. Your brain's going to be processing a lot quicker as well.
Sir, are you able to demonstrate being able to go through 3 magazines for the court today?
Objection.
What, are you going to have him fire 34?
No, Judge. He's going to fire 3 magazines with that trainer gun to show exactly how many seconds it would take. And again, with the qualification, his adrenaline is not going. To give the court an idea of the time frame it takes to go through 3 magazines.
Objection,
Well, I already had his testimony. It's a semi-automatic.
Okay.
I know how the magazine goes in and so on.
All right. That was just for the court's edification. So you ever shot 3 magazines yourself in that period of time?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you ever do it on this trainer's gun?
I tried.
And what was your time?
Well, isn't this sort of like putting on the glove and it sounds like it's not going to fit? I mean, he's kind of saying it's going to be tough for him to do it in 20 seconds. But anyway, right, your testimony is it can be done under circumstances in 20 seconds. That's your testimony.
Yes, sir.
All right. Sir, at what point in time did Officer Brelo indicate to you that he saw the movement in the car? At what points? If you could go through it with me.
The first notion that he sees in the car is when it collides with 238 and he sees the hands come up in dark objects being pointed at him.
Now, did he say both the passenger and the driver had those dark objects up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then when's the other movement that he indicated to you?
He indicated when he's at the trunk of 238, behind there, he can see the subjects moving in the vehicle. And then when he's up on the trunk lid, he can still see movement in the car.
Okay. And that's the last time he indicated he saw movement in the car.
Yes, sir.
Sir, is he able to recognize anybody to his left on this side of the car?
No. He knows there's officers there he can't identify.
How about to his right? What does he say to his right, this side?
When he got out of the car and evacuated the car to get behind 238, he knows his partner, Officer Moore, did the same. He knew she was somewhere to the right but had no idea where she was exactly.
Okay, and he indicated at this point his reasons for elevation?
He was afraid he'd get caught in crossfire from the officers on his left, and he was also afraid that the car would push back on top of him and roll on top of him, and then later on that the elevation would give him a better position to shoot in the passenger compartment because he didn't know if there were any officers behind the Chevy.
So at that point, he knew officers were shooting to this side,
Yes, sir.
and he feared that he might get pinned by this car pushing back 238.
Yes, sir.
Sir, you fired that type of Glock before?
Yes, sir.
And how fast does it take to reload a magazine?
With some practice, under a second.
Now, how about without practice?
A little bit longer.
What's a little bit longer?
Could be 2 seconds, could be more, depending on if you fumble it or not.
Okay. So, according to Officer Brelo's statement, he went through 2 magazines. He was on his 3rd magazine in his statement when he was on top of the trunk overlooking the light bar, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did BCI, to your knowledge, find any magazines at the crime scene?
No, sir.
Is that something that that team would look for?
Absolutely.
Did Officer Brelo indicate to you at any point in time if he got any magazines back from him?
Yes, sir. After finding himself at the driver's door of the car and everything had calmed down, after he put the car in park, turned off the ignition, removed the keys, his partner, Officer Moore, came up to him, asked how he was, and handed him a magazine. And he asked her, "What are you doing? Why did you pick that up?" And she just said, "Force of habit."
So, Officer Brelo didn't know whether that was one of his spent magazines or not.
No. He said it was a magazine for Glock 17. He did not know if it was his.
May I interrupt for a moment?
Absolutely.
You said nobody found a magazine on the scene, but was an empty one found in 217?
Nothing was indicated in the diagram or the crime scene report to my knowledge.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Gutierrez. We go to
Sir, I'm going to show it's marked for identification purposes. It states Exhibit 31. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
I believe that is Mr. Brelo's diagram from his interview.
Okay, does it indicate, is this his initials and
And badge number, I believe so, sir, and I believe that's his name along the edge.
how about this down here?
That should be his name, the date, and my signature.
Okay, And who drew these lines here?
That would have been Mr. Brelo.
Okay, and Officer Brelo, when you interviewed him, what did he say about this map? And how did he get to these lines? What's the significance of these lines here?
We asked him during his approach into the scene where he came in, how he came in, where he parked prior to everything beginning. The bottom,
If you could come down for a second so he doesn't know what we're talking about. If you could blow that up a little bit. Thank you, Ms. Margo. A little bit more if you could. Okay. So tell me, now who made these marks?
All the blue ink is done by Officer Brelo during the interview with marker pen. We asked how he drove in, which way he came in. He indicated he came up the driveway, what they thought was a dusty road because of all the dirt being kicked up by the cars ahead of him. Pulled up, that's when he's hearing the radio traffic of shots fired. And he's seeing the other car already stopped 238. He pulls up, stops there. He knows the car is about 10 feet to his left. The indication here.
How about this blue mark there?
The indication here is, can't tell if there's a mark on the windshield or not, but he has a line coming from the vehicle, his patrol car, the rear of 238. He then has a dot on the trunklet of 238, and then a dot on the driver's side of the Chevy.
Doesn't have a dot on top of the Malibu, does he?
No, he does not.
And this is the map that you went over with them on December 10th, correct? Of 2013?
That's the date on the side.
Bring that down.
Yes, 12/10/12.
Okay. Sir, all these maps that we went through, you utilized during your investigation?
yes, sir.
And are these type of documents kept in the normal course of your business?
Yes, sir.
And in this particular case, were they kept
Yes,
with
sir. These are all
BCI?
submitted to our case files with the interviews.
Okay. And have you utilized things of this nature in your other investigations that you do?
Yes, sir.
One moment, Charlie. Sure. Sir, I want to show you what's marked for identification purposes. It states exhibit. Number 819A. Patrick. So you recognize this blow-up, sir?
Yes, sir.
What is that from?
That is a blow-up of a diagram created by our crime scene unit.
Based upon what?
The trajectories they were able to identify on the Monte Carlo.
Okay. Is it better if it's like this for you?
That way is more oriented with the model.
Okay, sir. And these trajectories, were they in exact position?
Objection.
Overall.
They would be approximates based on the points where the car was and what the trajectories could determine.
So again, this is an approximation.
Yes, sir.
It's not exact.
In shooting reconstruction, I believe there is some scientific certainty to it, but not to my knowledge.
And sir, just like this area right here, I just want to qualify. Can you qualify for us? Without me reading? No, just tell me.
Okay.
The orientation of the diagram currently is, would basically be the orientation of the Monte Carlo if we were to take the diagram and lay it down, indicating the trajectories, the approximate areas of the various shooters involved in this.
And is this approximation of where the trajectories are, is this consistent with your approximation of where the individuals were that night?
Objection.
Overall.
Roughly. The approximate areas here, the only people that can tell us exactly where they were are the officers themselves. In the general areas where the casings were found, the officers here and up on the sidewalk and just off the hill would be indicative of these shots here.
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled, although isn't this really something that you can stitch together in your closing argument? I mean, does a finder of fact need him to make a reasonable inference?
No, Your Honor.
But
You're the finder of fact, and I get it. Get on the stand.
No, well, you
No, that's
can go
okay,
ahead.
Judge. That's all right. One moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Moment, Your Honor.
Sure. Actually, here's what we'll do. We'll go off the record. Just let me know when you're ready, and then I can let the court reporter know.
Sir, are you aware?
Well, hold on, because I asked the
Oh, I'm
reporters
sorry.
to
I'm
relax.
sorry, Your Honor.
Are you ready to resume?
Now, give me one more.
Okay. Just let me know when you're ready.
Actually, I want to see if Rob's awake here.
He was. He got a startled look on his face.
There's a first. I'm going to show you a number of
Hold on.
exhibits. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
You ready to resume?
Yes, I am.
Rob, you okay? All right, so we're back on the record, and thank you, Mr. Cudillo.
Sir, Show this marked States Exhibit 1224. Judge, I believe we're going to do some stipulations.
Oh, that's good. Except you're doing it on Mr. Lloyd's time.
Sir, are you become aware of the fact or not that some officers were disciplined by CPD in this case?
Overruled.
Yes, sir, I followed that in the news.
Okay. Showing this marked States Exhibit 1243. Have you ever seen this before?
We have a continuing objection, Your Honor.
Well, I don't know what this is, so I don't know if this, I'll take it as a single objection, but the question, do you know what this is not objectionable, so overrule.
These appear to be the disciplinary actions taken by the city against various officers.
And you're aware that that occurred?
I'm aware that occurred. I never reviewed the exact documents, but
Objection, Your Honor. Strike.
Well, you can't strike it because his answer actually supports your objection. So the motion to strike is denied, but and the objection is overruled, but I'm guessing it's going to be sustained to the next question or one of the next several questions.
And sir, those appear to be documents regarding disciplinary actions, you said, right?
yes, sir.
And you're not specifically aware of the discipline for each officer, are you?
No, sir.
But those records indicate what they are. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, the state offers to stipulate to 20 letters of discipline for the 18 patrol officers and 2 sergeants who have been disciplined with suspensions by the Cleveland Police Department with the letters, in lieu of bringing the clerk over to do that, that outlines the discipline for the actions taken and why. There were 18 patrol officers who received disciplinary action, 2 supervisors, 2 sergeants. We do not include the 1 acquittal and 1 re-instruct. The charged supervisors are not on that list and not considered. They have not, their actions against them or Officer Brelo have not begun.
Your Honor, we object to this as being irrelevant. The objection does not go to the authentication issue.
I was wondering, why is this relevant? Is the defendant among the 20?
He is not. We want to show, without having, the court advised us not to put a link, do not do our second trial in the first trial. It wasn't necessary, you asked it to abbreviate it, which we have certainly tried to do, and not bring in all the witnesses regarding the chase and the speed. But we brought testimony regarding the passion and the sudden passion and the actions that were taken. All of these officers, and we can present the evidence here that violated these various rules. Most of the 18 disregarded the direct orders of the supervisor. Some took film without authorization. They left the city. They engaged in high-speed practices and dangerous actions. We have to prove in our manslaughter the fit and or sudden passion aspects.
Might I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
To paraphrase then, are you arguing that this is evidence that these 20 were in a sudden passion or a sudden fit of rage or something approximating it, and that supports an inference that another officer, the defendant, would have been too? Is that, or am I getting this wrong?
No, you're getting it right in one sense. He's right in the middle of that same pack, violating the same rules regarding speed, regarding the rules, required in a chase and a permission and the other things. Some he is, some he isn't. It just saves us from that. And frankly, some of these officers are unavailable to us. 26 officers took the Fifth Amendment into grand jury. We are not seeing cooperation here. So I can bring it into a clerk. I can attempt through the internal affairs.
That last statement was inaccurate.
Hold on, and actually, thank you for controlling yourself. But let's not get into the demeaning of their assertion of the Fifth Amendment rights again. We've gone over that conversation. But the argument is relevance from the defense. I have to say, I hadn't considered your perspective, but there is some value to it. If the circumstances of this whole incident were such that 20 officers did things to the point of disobeying their known policies, it is some evidence that people involved were in a sudden passion or a sudden fit of rage, and by inference, because the defendant was involved, caught up, if you will, in the same circumstances, that he too may have been under a sudden passion or a sudden fit of rage occasioned by the victim. So the relevance objection is overruled. You said you're not objecting based on it being him being a wrong witness for these. Therefore, I guess these will come in.
Your Honor, these matters are all being appealed. Some of the discipline imposed on the supervisors was reversed by arbitrators, and Officer Brelo is not even up on charges. Yeah. There's a lot of different factors involved with all of these different officers.
Well, if I might interrupt, it is. I understand all those things, and I expect that kind of thing either to be brought up on cross or in your own portion of the case. But it is not strictly irrelevant. Is this what is going to make or break the case? I don't have an opinion on that. You can form your own opinion. But I think the argument for why it is relevant is not a bad one. So I think I understand the limitations of this evidence that you have mentioned here, and that I expect you'll try to get into evidence. But the evidence in and of itself is not strictly irrelevant, so the relevance objection is overruled, and I'm sure your opponent appreciates your professionalism in not arguing that they can't get in somehow as a business record or a similar hearsay exception.
The court.
Well, hold on. So
prefers we could bring another witness to this.
I don't prefer or not prefer. An objection was made. It's been overruled. So the next question is, Mr. Gutierrez.
So you aware of the discipline that was going on here?
Yes, sir.
And could you look at the first page, sir? Does that not indicate to you the discipline that was meted out to these particular officers?
Yes, it does.
Well, here's the thing. He's the wrong witness for this. Now, Mr. D'Angelo has said, I told him, I think it was professional of him not to lodge an objection that you could easily overcome with the correct witness. He did lodge another objection, which I think was a thoughtful one, but was overruled. So let me ask you this, Mr. D'Angelo. When it comes time to proffer these into evidence, I suppose you'll make the same objection you just made, right?
It'll be based on relevance, not
Right.
authentication.
Right, so if you proffer it, I'm sorry, if when it's proffered you make that objection, I'm telling you right now it's going to be overruled because it is overruled as you speak. If that occurs, are you then going to say, well, I also object because it hasn't been properly authenticated?
No.
Why don't you do this, Mr. Gutierrez? Why don't you proffer as an
We'll
exhibit?
offer, if it's okay, we'll offer those
That's what
for
I-
evidence. I don't know the number, was it 1246, 1243?
Right, so is the state proffering 1243 into evidence?
Yes, Your Honor.
Object, Mr. D'Angelo.
Objection, matter. And also, as I've argued over and above relevance, we submit that these are not final determinations. They're currently being briefed and awaiting arbitration, and also pointing out that several decisions made by the same entities that placed these officers up on departmental charges involving the supervisors, those decisions in large part were reversed by an arbitrator.
Well,
If I could address
are the
that.
reversals you're talking about somehow documented in a similar fashion? And if so, do you intend to, now that you pretty much are aware that if 1243 gets into evidence, would you intend to try to get the mitigating evidence into evidence? And if so, will the state offer him the same basic stipulation?
Two things, Judge. We would, if any of those have been reversed, I'm not aware of it. I just can't, but
One
we
was
would just.
terminated, and he was reinstated, right?
Well,
Two,
let's
I
talk
didn't
one and
include the
one.
two. One was acquitted and one was, had a reduction of below discipline to reinstruction. Now, if there's another disposition I'm unaware of, then we'll remove it. You know, just point out to one or two or three, we'll take them out. But I would argue this is that when it comes to appeals, you know, we often hear that argument, well, you know, we don't want to use that conviction against this fella or lady or whatever because it's up on appeal and we have a great appeal come. Well, appeals can last 20 years. They can roll away to the Hague. And, you know, we can't wait 20 years for the appellate process.
Well, my only question is this, to make this a little bit easier. Mr. D'Angelo believes he can come up with some evidence that will mitigate the effect of some portions of 1243. If he can come up with that, and you're satisfied that it is a business record and that it is what it purports to be, are you going to interpose an objection based on him not having the proper witness to
No.
authenticate it, or are you going to interpose an objection based on some claim that it isn't relevant?
No. If one of these has been reversed and I'm unaware of it, I talked to Internal Affairs today, and if I'm wrong on any of these, then absolutely. Or there's a subsequent action, then we'll withdraw whatever one they have a reversal of by the arbitrator or whatever the case might be.
So Exhibit 1243 is admitted over the defendant's objection, and you have your invitation, though, Mr. D'Angelo, to, in your portion of the case, and I think you can do this without waiving your objection. You can still appeal the ruling. But you have an invitation to proffer in your portion of the case evidence that you either possess or can gather that might, in your mind, mitigate the whatever meaning this exhibit or portions of it has.
And we would also have no objection to the court reviewing, you know, appeals. If they have an appellate brief or something made regarding the arbitration or for the arbitration or the improper ruling that they think the safety department gave them, and it has considerations such as somebody had a bad radio or something. I think that was a fellow who was acquitted or something like that. Absolutely, the court can take that into consideration. We have no problem with them reading those. You as a fact finder reading that brief.
Right, so 1243 is in, Mr. Gutierrez. Was there something else you wanted to ask Mr. Soraya?
Just a couple more questions, Your Honor, and thanks for the court's patience.
Sir,
Did you ask Officer Brelo about the lighting that was going on at that point?
Yes, sir.
And what did he indicate to you regarding the lighting?
He recalled the headlights on the zone cars, the headlights on the Chevy, and the parking lot lights. While saying it was kind of dark, he recalled that he could see into the passenger compartment of the car.
So he never indicated to you all these flashing lights were blinding him?
No, sir.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. It is, as you know, Mr. Gutierrez, direct exam.
Did he indicate to you that he got blinded by the lights?
Objection.
Overruled.
No, sir.
Okay. Did he ever indicate to you whether he could see inside the vehicle based upon the lighting?
Yes, sir.
Did he ever indicate to you whether he had any problem discerning the individuals inside the vehicle based upon how the lighting was that night?
He could see the occupants of the car.
Sir, did there come a time where BCI went back out to the scene of this incident?
Yes, sir.
What was the purpose of that?
To reposition the two CPD cars and the Monte Carlo and create a 3D scan of it.
Okay. And what information was gleaned from that particular exercise?
You were part of this construction, right?
Yes, sir.
What information was gleaned? Well, hey, that is an open-ended question, so we're getting better than that. Direct.
Well, thank you, Your Honor.
I'm not sure I understand the objection. And since I'm not sure, I'll take it to mean what did you observe? And he's asking the witness for it.
I'll
Something
rephrase
within
it.
his knowledge, so it's okay. Go ahead.
I'll rephrase it.
If you can answer, if you know what he's driving.
But I'll rephrase that. What was the purpose of doing that?
The 3D scan was the ability to recreate the situation, to be able to view it from all directions. It also gives us the ability to measure every single point through it, whereas the transit system is selected points. The 3D scanner sends out thousands and thousands of points and measures each one to give you that recreation.
Sir, I'm going to get to some pictures. State's Exhibit 798. Do you recognize the individual on top of that car, sir?
That is Agent Mark Kohler.
And did you observe him on that car that day?
Yes, sir.
And what is he doing at that point?
A trajectory probe had been inserted into one of the holes in the Chevy.
Isn't that this the A-pillar we're talking about?
I believe so. And then
And just for the course purposes, is this the rod we're talking
the
about?
yellow is the rod, and then there is a pink string attached to it. And then that string is extended along the axis of the trajectory rod.
Okay, could you go back to the first picture, please? I switched it by accident. Okay. And again, what was the purpose of this?
Just to give an approximation of where someone would have to be on the trunk of the car to match that trajectory.
Next picture. And what does this show?
Same situation, just a different angle.
And we're going for that A-pillar, is that not correct?
Yes, sir. You can see where the trajectory rod is inserted into the hole into the A-pillar.
Okay. And again, my apologies to the court reporters, at State's Exhibit 799.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how long did this reconstruction take?
We were there for quite a few hours. I believe it's about half an hour a scan, and they took multiple scans.
Sir, just backing you up to the model here, if this is Mr. Kolar here, like we see here shooting down into the A-pillar of the car here, which that 799 shows, okay, the trajectory of where he's saying, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything beyond here that would indicate a shot came from way up there?
Objection, Your Honor.
Was there anything to indicate that a shot came from up there?
Okay, I'll rephrase, Ron. Sir, Mr. Kolar is showing a particular trajectory, is he not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If that trajectory be followed past him, is there anything beyond that that could explain where that shot from the A-pillar came from?
It could come along anywhere along that axis. The further towards your left as it goes, the higher the elevation, though.
What, was somebody 20 feet tall able to shoot down an A-pillar like that?
Objection.
Well, it's purely hypothetical because it's never been a person 20 feet tall, but you're welcome to respond. So
The farther away, the taller they'd have to be, or in a very elevated position.
So, sir, regarding that trajectory, from that particular angle and that particular placement of Mr. Kolar, okay, did that give your team any definitive evidence as to who shot from up on that hood?
Objection, Your Honor.
sustained.
Sir, to your knowledge, are there any cases found behind this area? And if we're talking at the model over here?
No, sir. To my knowledge, no cases were found there.
There were some, but they were in this particular zone right here.
They were closer to the car, to 238 than the area you indicated.
One moment, Your Honor, sorry.
Sure.
Sir, did you ever go out there at nighttime?
Yes, sir.
And what was the purpose of that?
We were out there to assist and provide security when the lighting expert came out to do measurements.
Okay. And were there any placement cars at that point?
Utilizing regular cars, not the actual evidence vehicles.
Okay. I believe it's State's Exhibit 1132. So who was that?
That's me.
Okay. Did you hurt yourself?
No.
Okay. So, what was the reason that you were going out there that?
Objection.
I've heard this testimony, but overruled.
And sir, what was your purpose for going out there that night?
We were initially tasked with providing security while the cars were in position. I was asked to get up on the car for part of the lighting measurement.
Okay. State's Exhibit 1153. And sir, again, did you able to glean any information regarding this type of exercise, regarding this case? Any relevant and pertinent information?
Well, I object to saying gleam instead of glean, but other than that, overruled.
This was done more for the lighting expert. What are perceptions was visible, things like that.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. We'll go off the record for a moment. You have a rough estimate? It's more than 5 or 10 minutes, right?
Pardon me?
It's more than 5 or 10 minutes,
I
right?
think so.
Did you have somebody else, Mr. Gutierrez or Mr. McGinty? Or is this your last witness?
Sure, Your Honor.
Okay.
I suspect this will be our last witness. We have one more we're considering we're going to discuss tonight, but I would like to take this opportunity to renew the state's proposed jury judge view of the scene at night.
Well,
We've heard a lot about night.
Hold on.
We're very impressed to see it at night.
Well, we'll probably have to do this on the record, but I just want to figure, here's what we're going to do. We'll take a 15-minute break. We'll begin your cross-exam, but we'll probably break at 5, maybe a few minutes before, a few minutes after, depending on if he's transitioning subjects at the time. And then we could talk about, at the appropriate time on the record, we could talk about a nighttime view. In your mind, though, does it matter whether it's done, when it's done? In other words,
Just
during
in
his
dark.
case, during your case?
We tried to duplicate the conditions with clouds and all that, but I think any night would give the court and the fact finder some just general indication of what it looks like at night. I don't think we need the cars unless the court prefers it. We'll do anything the court wants, but the court could actually do it on its own. Just drive out there without anybody. We don't have to point anything out to you. You know the scene as well as we do.
Judge, they had cars out there when they did this. We would ask that the cars be brought out there.
Whatever the court wants, Judge, we'll do.
Well, let's consider. I will say this: I think the scene view was of some value, so I'm open to it. But let's talk about it. Let me think about it. Now you know they're kind of renewing the request, so you can formulate your arguments. Mr. Gutierrez, you have some law that prohibits defense counsel from cross-examining a witness on the contents of the admission by a party opponent?
Yes, Your Honor, I do, right on point, and that is that defense...
What, name of?
Oh, I got it right here, I got a copy for you, Judge. State versus Primus. In fact, it goes right what Mr. D'Angelo said.
What's the... K-I...
M-M-I-E, Kimmy.
K-I-M-M...
I-E.
Yeah, you see, I would have said that was Kimmy. What's the
Right.
site?
Kimmy.
Oh, wait, you have an extra copy?
Yes, I
Do you
don't
have a citation?
It is 8th District, September 19th, 2013, 99236. The site is, looks like
2013 Ohio, something?
Lexus 42.
No, I'd like that. Give me the Supreme Court number. It's much easier to find. Do you have a copy for him?
I got one here, Judge. And I also have a copy of the...
Here, Mr. D'Angelo, it's 2013 Ohio 4034. Here, I can find this. You can give Mr. D'Angelo.
Judge, there's also an evidence rule that directly addresses this issue, and that is evidence rule 801 D2, admission by party opponent.
So let's say 415.
Your Honor, when you look at this, I just ask you to consider that other than the initial pursuit with Nan and the route of the pursuit leading into East Cleveland, the testimony that was listed basically covered the entirety of his interview from the point he got to East Cleveland till the end. It just wasn't a little couple small bits of information.
So we'll say 415. And then